It's Halloween. It's horror. It's 1987. It's Stephen King. It's George Romero. It's a return to the comic creepiness. It's Creepshow 2. Let's go, Rick. Rick, what say you?
What say I? The problem with a film like this is that the expectations from the earlier film, a combination, a coming together of two greats of the genre, Stephen King as a writer and George Romero as a writer-director. That's a tall order. That's a lot to ascend, and I think it's almost unfair to expect that this would be as good a film as the original. Now, the original is no great film in and of itself, but it's a lot of fun. And I think part of the problem with this film is that you go into it with the attitude that you want it to be what the original film was. Now, when you're able to separate yourself from that, when you're able to look at it with a little bit more of an objective attitude, you'll find that this is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun. This is a stupid, ridiculous horror kind of thing that makes weird little statements here and there. It definitely borders on certain levels of racism, and
yeah, for sure.
But it was the 80s. It was 87. So I forgive the great white filmmakers of the 1980s their transgressions and ignorance, because sometimes shit is just fun. And at the end of the day, assholes learn a lesson. And I guess that's, in retrospect, the most that you could expect. That's the most that you could hope for in a film like this. It wasn't going to be, there was going to be no getting the land back. It was going to be a large fucking wooden Indian hatching some asshole's life to pieces. I liked it. I liked the film. And as I watched it again, there was a lot more to like from what I remembered. I remember watching this. This was a Tower Records Tuesday pickup, $1.50 movie on a Tuesday when I used to do that. And I remember being disappointed. Number one, 3 movies instead of the 5 that you got in the original Creepshow. And I didn't know this until right now, that George Romero didn't even direct this film. I was under the assumption that it was a Stephen King stories written or adapted and directed by George Romero. No, the adaptations are Romero, but this is a film directed by a guy named Michael Gornick, who was, I think, a cinematographer on Creepshow.
Yeah, so this is fucking clickbait.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly what it is. But is it fun? Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of stupid fun. And they do the right thing where each short film gets a little bit better than the one before it, until you get that last film where basically something that came to pass in real life decades later, a man hitchhiking, getting run over, and then I guess staying with the woman who has hit him. Thanks for the ride, lady. I mean, we were saying that shit for fucking years after seeing this movie. Thanks for the ride, lady. Thanks for the ride. And it was like, to the point of annoyance. But if you separate expectation from experience, which is difficult in some sense, but with hindsight, it becomes a lot easier. This proves to be a much better film than it was initially received. It's not as good as the original film, but it's a hell of a lot better than its reputation. But now it's drifted into cult status, which people love it a lot. So, what's your opinion?
Well, it becomes this. It's a nostalgia piece, even if like whatever your relationship with it, it becomes this nostalgia piece because it's a time capsule. It's this fucking 80s thing where it's like, well, how much about watching horror films is about actually getting scared, or because look, I mean, like, you're gonna get diminishing returns because horror. How many great, really, really great horror films are there? It's a limited number, and most of us who listen to the show and the two of us, we've done and we've talked about for the most part, the best.
Yeah.
Already. So every Halloween, just expect to be disappointed because
we're running out of shit.
I mean, we're not running out of shit to talk about.
We're running out of great films too. I mean, this is the problem: is that a lot of times you find yourself looking for something great. I really want to be blown out of the water. I really want something that's new, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen on the same frequency as it happened when I was in my teens and early 20s. Yeah. I've seen everything at this point, and I haven't seen everything, but you know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Right. Yeah. And there's going to be some like outlier shit, but it's like those are going to be few and far between. Mm-hmm. The best you can hope for is an argument between me and Rick that is a different argument than the normal ones that we have. And I've talked about this. It's like, I already have this relationship with Halloween where every year I feel like it's not Halloween enough.
Yeah.
And the Halloweens are getting shorter. There's no kids haven't been trick-or-treating for fucking like decades.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like this thing. So then we watch something like this and it's like going back to what I don't know even know if I said it or I started to say it, which is, do you want to be scared? Like, do you really want to, or do you just want that vibe? Do you just want the Halloween vibe around you? And sometimes it's not about fucking like, whether it's jump scare or it's just something like, The Exorcist, these top of the line fucking horror things.
Yeah.
It's not going to get to that point. Sometimes it's just enough to tune into that fucking Halloween channel, so to speak. Put a Halloween film on. Get in that mood. Get in that vibe. Whether it's actually October or it's before or after, if it's fucking in the summertime, but you're vibing with Michael Myers or whatever. With this, it's fucking, whether George Romero directed it or not, it's fucking, the point is that we're going to pretend that it's George Romero and Stephen King.
Yeah.
We're going to pretend we're back in the 80s. We're going to tune in. We're going to watch this fucking thing and not necessarily be scared, but laugh or see somebody get killed in a different way than what happens in a thriller or a fucking drama. It's different. So we're going to watch fucking these little episodes of Creepshow 2. And they do, I mean, they're not great. They're somewhat cheeseball. And even at times kind of like, okay, like I just saw this. Okay, well, what was the point? And a lot of these things, I don't know this material in terms of like the written, like the origins.
Yeah.
The source, but I'm sure they work better in their original fucking like versions than they do in terms of this adaptation. The second piece, I think, is actually even weaker than the first.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 episodes are basically, one is well, let's just go through them in order. The first one is basically a softly racist horror Hallmark card.
Old Chief Woodenhead is what it's called.
Yeah.
First off, let's go right there. Old Chief Woodenhead.
It's a fucking cigar store wooden Indian as fetish object. You have this old couple of store owners, this couple.
Yeah.
An optimistic husband and the pessimistic wife. And they're sitting outside and he's talking about how much he's put into that little fucking piece of shit town that they live in. And like, it's all about, they've taken so much, like they should just wait to give back. And she's just like, this town sucks. Like, close this fucking store so you can like have a little bit of life left before you fucking die. And like, You don't have to just be in this store all the time. And he's like, nah, Martha, like, this country was built on hopes and fucking dreams, or whatever the fuck he says.
It's very Norman Rockwell, if anybody even remembers what that fucking reference
Right.
is.
Remember going to the doctor's office and fucking seeing those Norman Rockwells?
Yeah. Great pictures. I mean, they're really well done, but nostalgia, and it's like, that's making America great again. That's the whole...
An America that never was, yeah.
Exactly, you know?
And she's just like, hopes and dreams tore this fucking country apart. She's totally like Rick. Like, she's just like throwing cold water on everything he says. And then the stereotypical fucking like Native American leader comes, and the George Kennedy husband is hoping that fucking the wife doesn't embarrass him. And so apparently this tribe owes them money. So he puts up as collateral, and as a sign of good faith, he puts up, each family from his tribe has put up some kind of like turquoise and silver piece of jewelry that's precious to them, as this like good faith thing of like, if we don't pay you in 2 autumns what we owe you, you keep this. So then everyone's heart is like melting and all fucking warm, and everyone's warm and fuzzy and like, oh my God, like, fuck, like these savages actually prove themselves to be civilized. Oh my God, amazing, right? And then here you go, the fucking bad Indian guy, like in the back. And then the old white guy's like, you dishonor your people. And the young guy's like, shut the fuck up, old man. I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to fucking like become famous. And so it has its own kind of haste code, because it does what you said. Assholes learn a lesson.
Yeah.
And so the 2 old people get killed. And it takes a stereotype and a fantasy for the wrongs to be set right. And how does that happen? How is revenge exacted? Especially, you know, from a disrespectful Native American punk and his dumb accomplices. Well, the fucking Chief Woodenhead, the cigar shop Wooden Indian, comes to life and kills them. And then the stereotypical like Native American leader comes back the next day and fucking knows what happened, because he knows, and he's like,
he's at one with the spirits.
He's
man.
the Mr. Miyagi of that show, you know. And so he's like, now, Chief Woodenhead, your soul can rest easy. And he drives off into the fucking sunset, and like, all is well in the world, you know? Because Stephen King said so.
That's how it works. I mean, it's typical. I mean, it's the worst kind of well, it's not the worst kind of whitewashing, but it's very typical whitewashing that you see in cinema, where and we've talked about this numerous times. You can go back to our episode on Engines Are Us, the documentary that they did, when we kind of we talked about the great Charlie Hill, Wes Studi. We talked about Native representation in films, and you and I kind of expanded on the point where white people or white creative types have a tendency to want to blame white culture for all of the destruction and all of the desecration and the loss of spiritual connection with the land and all of this, and yet at the same time want to be the heroes of the story by being the Messiah figure that comes out of it. There's a little bit of a hint of that here, but it's more along the lines of just this film is more of just using Native American culture as a, what do you call it? Like a trinket, it's just
like a little feather thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's no
it's
attempt to
kind of
really
like
understand. Yeah.
no, it's just a prop to tell that story, to say like, oh, this is interesting,
Mhm.
and there's like this, it's the whole premise of this fucking thing is to like kind of create some form of irony.
Yeah.
And there's also like it's kind of conservative in that it's upholding the past, and that's kind of what we touched on with the Norman Rockwell
Mhm.
aspect. Is this kind of thing of like, well, remember how everything was thriving before, and it seems to glorify and romanticize the past and set it up in opposition against the misguided youth of today. And so this now magical figure from the past has to come back and set things right. But at the end of the day, the wooden Indian, with quotes, is still a fucking wooden Indian. It still goes back to what it was.
Yeah.
And now all you're left with is 2 dead shop owners and 3 dead assholes. So how is that? You know what I mean? Like setting what's right with the world. It's just kind of this assholes learn a lesson again.
Yeah.
What you said, kind of thing. So it's just kind of like, let's be cute and just have a little fun. And I think in that sense, something like the Twilight Zone or even Tales from the Crypt does it better.
Mhm. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Where you're just going like, oh, like, and I think because Tales from the Crypt is more of a, I don't know when it started, but I get a sense from what I remember that it's like more late 80s, 90s, and that it just already had more of a handle on the irony, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was already coming from that tone. But I mean, like, you do want to watch them fucking get killed, and so when you do, there is something satisfying about it. I just don't think that there's enough of it. I think the payoff isn't that great.
No, it's not. You know what? And this is weird for me to say, but it's not gory enough. It's not violent enough. The kills are not funny enough for me in this type of situation, because I mean, I'm on one hand, I'm not gonna sell out to the story that's being told. It's very basic and it's very unintentionally insulting. I mean, I think people write something like this with the idea that they're trying to be understanding and they're trying to be they're trying to show a certain degree of sympathy and empathy, and they missed the boat completely. That being the case, I'm looking for something that's a little bit more violent, and if you're gonna make something, make it. If you're gonna go to a certain type, you got to remember also, this is the 1980s. This is Freddy Krueger. This is the various incarnations of Friday the 13th, as well as the later films in the Halloween series, some of the Chainsaw Massacre reboots that they were doing. I think that if you're going to do something like this, then up the ante on the violence, because that's the selling point, or make it funnier. I think that's one of the things that's missing from this film that was really strong in the first Creepshow film, is that how funny it was and how ridiculous and how childish in some ways it was. I want my birthday cake, or the thing that's in the crate. There was a lot of really funny, goofy shit in that movie, in addition to the jump scares and which, don't get me wrong, Creepshow is not a scary movie. I never thought it was a scary film, and the majority of films that I've seen are not frightening. Elm Street isn't frightening. Halloween is frightening. So I think there's a weird kind of I think part of the problem is you got to know what the genre really is and what kind of film you're trying to make. We talked a few weeks back, actually a couple of months back, but in the span of this conversation on Halloween, we talked about Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell, and I felt like that was a very good, at least it was a very good execution of horror comedy. So it wasn't horror, it wasn't frightening, but the comedy in it that was serving the horror was funny, and it was cartoonish, and it was slapstick.
Out there, yeah.
Yeah. So I think when you do something like that, that's, horror is really difficult. Either you're trying to make something that's very scary, which you can go one of two ways. You can scare the shit out of somebody with what we don't know, which is Chainsaw Massacre and, to a degree, Michael Myers. Where do these people come from? How are they possible? Is this possible for real life? If you've driven through Texas at any point in your life, you know that Chainsaw Massacre is a very real thing, or at least in your head, it's a very real thing. You know what I mean by that, right? I mean,
yeah.
So you're in the middle of nowhere. There is shit that's going on that you can't even begin to your mind is taken over at that point. Your paranoia and your idea of what is out there is becoming greater than whatever actually exists. Or you have something that is outright funny, where you're going to go the Sam Raimi route. But true horror, or at least true horror as it exists today, is the psychological, I think. Those are the ones that really get into you. They really get into you because they tap into this idea of what you're afraid of more than the reality of what you fear. There's something about the dark places. There's something about what you're not entirely aware of, or are not willing to look at objectively. And I think all of us have something that terrifies us. All of us have something that is both exciting, enticing, but also very frightening. I don't know what that is for you. I could go a couple of different. It's not Creepshow 2, no. But so that's the problem with it, though. So, but does the film fail? I don't think the film fails. It's just not. It's a B movie, entertaining, waste of a day. That's all it is. You're having a short, good time with something stupid, and you want these guys to die. How are they going to die? That's someone's going to get an arrow, somebody's going to get scalped, and it's typical. You can see it coming from a mile away. It's the weakest of the three films, but you have to start somewhere, I guess. Maybe they could have made a better film. I don't know. With the material they had, I don't know what else you could have done. So that's Old Chief Woodenhead. Do you have anything else about that you want to say?
Not right now. I mean, something might pop up because I actually think that one there's more to chew on with that than there is in the second episode, or the second vignette, which is basically about this late ghoul that fucking eats teenagers.
Yeah.
I thought that was the weakest piece.
I thought, okay, yes. Narratively, I would agree with you.
Okay.
but it's a lot more fun for me.
Explain.
I think I don't like these people. I don't like any of them. The fucking jock and his slightly less assholish buddy, who and I remember watching this thinking he's gonna try to fuck her. Is he really gonna try to fuck her while she's asleep? So there was, and then but watching this oil slick grab a hold of these people and suck them down and swallow them and feed on them. I enjoyed that because I did not like them. It was like, oh, okay, which one are they going to get next? Are they going to get the other chick? Which one is the hero? This braggadocio motherfucker, he's going down. At some point, he's going to go down. But the question is anybody going to survive this thing? And I was hoping that nobody would. I was hoping that it would end the way that it did. For me, narratively, the first film is better. But for me, this one was a lot more fun. And
because they all died.
Because they all died, and they suffered in their deaths. You're watching that first girl being swallowed alive by this thing. I don't remember how the jock dies. How did the jock die? I mean, they all get eaten by the thing. He tries to swim, right?
The first girl is like reaching. She's the one that you think is like the most conservative one. Yeah. She doesn't really want to smoke at first because they're smoking weed, listening to the music while they're driving to this lake. And the premise is they're going to this fucking lake to swim and to use this like raft that it looks like basically like a dock, like a floating dock with a little ladder, and it's there. Whoever owns it and has land along the edge of the lake, they leave it out there for the summer, and then before winter, when wintertime they take it away or whatever. And so they've heard about this, and they're going now to go fucking, like, in October time when the water's cold as fuck, and no one's around, they're going to go and, like, hang out. Hopefully, according to the guys, fuck these chicks.
Yeah.
So they all go. So the first girl, they see this oil slick, and she's kind of, like, fucking with it a little bit. Like, there was some kind of duck or some kind of bird that had gotten caught in it, and I think there was a feather that she's like playing with. And next thing you know, this shit fucking grabs her and pulls her in.
Yeah.
And it's like covering her and like consuming her, and it looks kind of cool because it looks fucked up. And you can see the shape of her face, but it's all black because she's like covered. And so she goes under. So they're all freaking the fuck out, as they would, right?
Yeah.
So they're there for a long time, and they're trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen? Is it going to, like, do we swim? What do we do? Now, this thing is made of planks, and so in between the planks, there's, like, some space.
Yeah.
And so the jock guy, his leg, the ooze comes through the spaces in between the planks and grabs his leg, and it basically pulls him through the fucking wood. And as it's pulling him down through the wood, he's like screaming, but like one leg goes through, but the other leg is still like
holding on,
on the raft. So his fucking leg ends up snapping, the leg that's up. So then it ends up pointing like straight up, while the other leg is pointing down because that's what's getting pulled on. So he's all fucked up, and then he just gets swallowed up. So then it's the friend, the other guy, and then it's like, so it's that guy, and then the girl who was with the jock.
Yeah.
And so the friend guy is like, as long as you keep your feet on the planks, the
Yeah, he gets weird because he takes on a leadership role where it's like, oh, he's a hero. I'm going to protect this girl, and you know she's not going to do, but you think, okay, he's a decent guy. He's he's looking out for her. He's looking out for himself. They're going to save. They're going to save each other. They're going to take care of each other. But this is hopeless. This is really hopeless. But then, there's that moment where he's like, okay, we'll take turns sleeping because we need to rest.
Yeah, and she's like, hold me. You need to hold me.
Yeah.
So he's like,
because that's what they do.
So he's like, this is an 80s movie, female character. Let me see your tits.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen, but they're holding each other so they fall asleep. And then he wakes up and he's kind of delirious. So that could be it too. You know what I mean?
Don't be making excuses for this motherfucker.
Like, I'm delirious. I'm going to try to fucking sexually assault this girl in her sleep. And so she's...
It was the 80s, okay? It was 80s.
Yeah, exactly. So he starts like kind of kissing on her neck, and then he lays her down, and then he fucking pulls up her shirt and he starts like licking her stomach. And then since her face is like, the side of her face is against the raft, that shit fucking just gets her. It just gets her face. And it's pulling her skin away. So then she's looking at him and half of her face is fucking like being pulled off. And she's just screaming. And at this point, it's like, oh, this motherfucker's going to make a run for it. He's going to try to just swim away. Which he does. So he's swimming. And this oil slick just starts following him. And he's swimming and he's swimming and he makes it. And instead of fucking like running like away from the fucking shoreline, he gets right to the fucking edge of the water and he turns around and sits and he starts fucking, he's like, I beat you. I beat you. And the motherfucking oil slick turns into a fucking wave and just covers him.
Yeah.
The end.
See, for me, it's like, it's obvious. It's so fucking obvious, but I enjoy the payoff. I mean, because I did not like anybody there. They were all, fuck them. Bunch of fucking assholes. They got what they deserved. Fuck them. And then
the camera pans.
Yeah.
And there's a sign, but it's covered by all this foliage and all these weeds, and it says, like, no swimming.
Yeah. Which is like, what would that have stopped anyway, though? That wouldn't have stopped. That was stupid. Make it like danger, giant oil blob that eats you. Don't get in the water.
Yeah,
we're warning you, motherfucker.
At that point, it would have been like the group going like, "Oh, let's go fuck with the oil blob."
Yeah.
So that's the second episode, and it's super profound, super ironic, fucking deep and fucking meaningful fucking pan of the camera.
Isn't that sometimes the point though? Is that it doesn't have to be. It's just fucking bad.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a part of me that's just like, yeah, I don't give a fuck. It's horrible. It's badly acted. The writing is, the fucking, it just doesn't work on so many levels, but I'm having a good time. Yeah.
And then it's fucked up when you're going like, there's that part of you that's like, well, I want more violence. I want more gore.
Mm-hmm.
And then the stuff that we criticize, there's a little back part of your mind where you're like, no, I do want it. They should have shown her tits. To be in keeping with the fucked up, all the stereotypes, all the fucking like thing. The first episode should have been more racially egregious.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. That's the way I feel. If you're gonna make something offensive, then go all the way. Make it offensive. Yeah. Go completely. But I think the problem with the first one is that the first episode definitely is they don't see themselves as being the racists that they are. And that this is just, it's apologetic. It's well, I have black friends. I have, I support Native American rights. No, motherfucker, this is there's a part of you that wants this. Yeah,
for my cigar shop.
Exactly. Like, this is a celebration of a powerful and respected tribe. No. Fuck you.
Right.
You know, make it.
What are you talking about?
Exactly. So, you know, but with this, you have an opportunity to take it to the limit. You have an opportunity to make it sexual, to make it demeaning, to make it violent, and without any sense of redemption whatsoever. The only good thing about this one is it's kind of fun, but it pays off for me because I'm happy to see them all die. Yeah. I'm happy to hear that car just sit there playing the radio. Yeah, until the battery runs dead. And, you know.
You never see it in the fucking movie either.
No, you never do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the third film was actually a lot of fun. The third film I like. And the third film has a little bit of well, not a little bit, but it does have a class warfare thing going on that I think works in it works to its advantage. Something that I don't think I recognized when I saw it in '87, but here I'm like, oh shit, this is probably just a wandering black man who gets hit by a rich white woman who's leaving an affair.
Right.
And you know, she's fucking around on her husband, and now she's making her way out of this, trying to get home. And it's hilarious because all she cares about is getting home before he does. I just want to get home before he does. So, and you know, they do something really cool where well, it's not really cool, but it's in keeping with the narrative, where after she runs over a hitchhiker, after she hits him, she's like, well, what difference does it make? Why am I going to stop? I mean, I got to get home. What's the rationalization? Why am I going to ruin 2 lives? Is that what she says?
She's just going through the whole fucking thing, and she's just like, I can live with this. What difference does it make? They didn't see me. Like, she's like, if I can't live with it, I'll just turn myself in later. Why am I worrying about it?
Yeah.
So she's going through all this stuff, and there's something kind of like realistic about that, because she's really trying to like.
Well, there's not something realistic about it. This happened like 20 years later. Don't you remember this?
No.
I think it was in Dallas. I can't remember, but there was a white woman, and I think she hit a black man. I'm not sure.
It was an accident.
Well, it was more than just an accident. She hit him, and he went through her windshield and got stuck in her windshield.
Damn.
Now, she drove home with this motherfucker in her windshield. And she parked. Yeah. Okay. Then she parked the car in her garage, but he's stuck in the windshield. Then he became conscious, because obviously he's unconscious during a good portion of it. I mean, he just got hit through a fucking, you know, he went head first through a windshield.
Right.
And he comes to, and his body is stuck in this windshield. And I think she kept him there for a couple of days before he died.
What the fuck?
I don't remember this story exactly, but this was years before that happened. So I think they made a movie out of it with Mina Suvari as the woman. I don't remember the particulars of the case. The race goes back and forth. I don't know if it was a black man that was hit or if it was a black woman driving. I don't remember what the actual event was, but I remember this. I remember reading this story, or reading about it, and also seeing some kind of a news report on it, and then laughing my ass off, because all I could think of was, thanks for the ride, lady. All I could think of was this. And I remember calling my dad, and because my dad loves this segment of the movie. He thinks it's fucking hilarious. And we were just laughing because, you know, as always, we were just like, fucking white people. Can you believe that shit? Yeah, I can believe it. Just
well, it's all it's ridiculous, because it's this guy gets hit, and then Stephen King has a cameo as this trucker.
And what does he say? Tell him what he says.
What is it, a black guy?
That's a black feller. That's a black guy. Did you say black fella or guy?
I don't think he says feller.
I don't know. I just
fucking.
Give me this thing. Just give it to me.
Yeah. Okay, sure. That's what he said. He said a black feller.
He's a black feller. Oh.
And the guy keeps coming back. But all he says is "Thanks for the ride, lady."
Yeah.
And it's fucked up because he won't stop, and he keeps he's holding onto her car, and she ends up doing all this shit to get rid of his body, to get rid of him because he's still alive.
Well, she keeps running over him. She keeps running over him, or
and he gets more and more disfigured and more fucked up. And ultimately, then she fucking opens her glove compartment and she's got a fucking gun in there.
Yeah.
And then so she's shooting him, and he's like, "Thanks for the ride, lady." And it's just over and over, and the best part is that they don't give him anything else to say.
Yeah.
That it's just that. And she's just getting more and more fucked up, and her car is getting more and more fucked because she's driving through the fucking woods. She's off-roading in this fucking Mercedes.
In this low Mercedes.
Yeah. From this affair with this gigolo guy. And I think it's her husband that stops.
I think so too. I remember that.
And he stops on the road because he sees the hitchhiker.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately she fucking makes it home. And she's just like, okay, it's just going to cost $3,000 and it'll be just like I drove it off the fucking lot. And she's all scratched up. The car's all fucked up. There's leaves and branches all over. She pulls into her fucking driveway, big house. She hits the clicker, the fucking
garage. Well, she's pissed off. The one day I get home before he does.
Oh, yeah.
He's not even not there. He's not. Yeah, he's looking at the fucking accident that you just had. You know, Jesus.
So she's fucking, and then here's this guy, and then so she freaks out, but he ends up just jumping into the fucking car, and he just goes after her neck, and there are these racial undertones to this fucking film. You know what I mean? Whether. However, in the background they are, or in the forefront, at the forefront, whatever, they're there. So at the end of the day, it's still this black dude chasing this white chick. It's still King Kong. It's still fucking Birth of a Nation.
I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think it's more along the lines of.
I'm not talking about the intention. I'm just talking about there's still.
Oh no, the feeling of that is there. Oh, definitely. You could make that argument easily. Yeah.
I mean, it's a black guy chasing, even though he's the victim.
Yeah.
It's still that. You know what I mean? And
I get you now. Yeah.
And especially because we're looking at it from her perspective. It's even though at the same time we know that first of all what you said, she's fucking rich, and then she's married to a lawyer, so already that sets you up to not like her or him.
Yeah.
Just the lawyer part already sets that up. So this guy fucking this hitchhiker guy fucks her up. The husband comes home. He opens because the garage door closed, so he clicks it open. He sees all this fucking smoke. Goes in and he sees his wife fucking just dead in the driver's seat, and that's the end of the fucking thing. And
isn't his placard or whatever he was holding up?
Yeah, it said. What does it say? It says.
Does it say "Thanks for the ride, lady"?
No, it said. Fuck, I don't remember.
I don't remember what it said.
Which means, who cares?
Yeah. Well, a lot of this movie as a whole, all 3 episodes, there's who cares? Who cares about them?
Yeah.
The sign said Dover I guess he was going to Dover. That's that's what it said. But it really comes down to what difference does it make? It's at the end of the day, it's a forgettable little film. It's fun. It has its moments. But it's a waste of time. I don't feel like I saw anything that was that changed my attitude about horror films. It wasn't one of these great underseen films that I'm so proud to be able to introduce people to. It's not a carnival of souls. It's not something where I can't wait to talk about this. You know what I mean? It's but it is a fun little discussion from a certain era, and being able to talk about the 1980s in the respect that they deserve, which is basically a have-nots. I mean, this is Reagan era politics, you know. This is you want to see rich people get fucked. You want to see them suffer, and it happens to this woman, and I'm glad it does, and I'm glad it works out the way it does with her. But it's a completely meaningless little excursion, because at the end of the day, you know, shit, it doesn't happen. You know that there is no, like you said earlier, there is no Hays Code that makes the haves come to terms with their choices and their actions and the sins committed upon the have-nots. So, what are you gonna do?
You just fucking you take the movie out and you put another one in later.
Well, that's the thing. Let's, you know, before we move on, let's talk about because I don't like leaving the month on a sour note. We've had some fun. We've talked about, you know, some fun films. Carnival of Souls was one of them. The, you know, Horror of Dracula was fun for Cushing and Christopher Lee. The Stephen King documentary was a lot of fun, even though the film itself wasn't all that it could have been. But it was a fun little excursion and a look at the work of King as a writer and as a screen presence. But what are there films right now that you can think of that you want to dive into? Something that you've heard of and you say, you know what, that's something that I haven't had a chance to see. I haven't made time to see, but I'm kind of interested in, and it falls into that horror category. Can you think of anything?
Well, there's a movie out right now that I've heard a little bit about that I don't know much about, but I know it's a body horror film, and it's called The Substance, and it stars Demi Moore. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious. I'm curious about it, and I'm also willing, and we are able to fucking like do horror outside of just October. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's something that I want to go check out.
Well, I'm interested in it. Yeah,
that I want to check out.
From what I've heard about the film, it sounds interesting. But I also know me, and I know what I come to expect, and I know what certain prejudices that I go into a movie with. And when I hear a story about a white woman who's trying to hold on to her youth and is being punished for the sin of what's the sin?
Like vanity?
Vanity. The sin of vanity. I'm like, fuck her. You know? And I know a lot of the criticism, not necessarily the write-ups on this film are talking about how brave it is for a filmmaker and an actor or an actress in this case, specifically an actress in this case, to confront misogyny and the role of women getting old in movies. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, my attitude is, fuck them. Rich white women and their struggle to stay beautiful and their struggle to be defined by their looks. I don't have a lot of sympathy, so I can imagine the film going sideways for me. It's weird because I can see myself going to see the film and admiring it on a certain technical aspect or the professionalism of the filmmaking, but there is also a part of me that's going to be sitting here going, this is just white women crying about their fucking lives yet again. I am not the one that you come to for this type of sympathy. I'm not. I have to own it. I can't hide from it. I'm not sitting here embracing this Captain Asshole moniker. As a means of elevating myself. I'm just saying this is the kind of thing that I think of when it's kind of the attitude that I had going in to see Dune, and it's definitely the attitude that I had going in to see Dune Part 2. Actually, Dune Part 2 didn't have a chance to win me over because of how much Dune had set up in the constant of the white savior model, and how I'm just basically fucking tired of it. And I don't know if it's fair to say this about this new movie, but I'm not going to pretend that it's not a factor in the prejudice that I take into watching the movie.
Yeah, I get that. I just think that, like, I think there's a part of what you're saying that I think is very valid, right?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But I think that that's just one aspect. I think that there's that if we take, and remember, we haven't seen this shit, so we're going into it. I mean, it might just be interesting to see if you go into it and you're like, of course, I'm going to double down because everything I said was true. Mm-hmm. Or if you're like, you know what I said was true, but there was also this part. Because it's like, you can take that argument for anything and be like, oh, well, that's just some first world fucking whatever, because people who are really struggling to survive don't have time to fucking worry about, like, they're not worried about getting old in the same way because they're just worried about getting old because they can't work as hard as they used to, and their body's like hurting, but they're still trying to make ends meet. Like, there's that element too, but like, if they were in a better position, they would be worried about these things as well.
Oh yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? So
whenever somebody says first world problems, I always I live in the fucking first world. These are my problems. Being able to provide
to everything else. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I don't recognize that. But I don't expect a person in the third world to sympathize with my plight in the same way that it's almost impossible for me to sympathize with what a rich white woman is going through and the pain and the suffering. And I find it difficult to give a fuck. Now, that being said, there's also material that transcends story. So the story is one that's been told, and it's an obvious thing, but the way it's told might elevate it. The way it's told.
There's a lot of like, be careful what you wish for type of shit. There's also like, Demi Moore may be, the casting and the way that the character is, okay, this is the demographic of this fucking character, but you could fucking do it with some. What if it's like an African American character, and like this person has the ability to lighten their skin, or this person has the ability to, in a world where the ability doesn't exist, this person has the ability to straighten their hair or lighten their skin, or do any kind of shit that fucking like people do. And it's not only do they always do it because of vanity, a lot of times they do it because of insecurity, or they do it because of, obviously these are the fucking standards that are being created in our society. And like what you were saying about the getting old, it's kind of like, is it about staying young or is it about not getting old?
Yeah.
And those, I mean, it sounds like those two things are the same, but I think they come from a different extreme. You know what I mean? Like,
no, yeah, you're right.
Like, are you working out because you want to be healthy? Or are you working out because you want to feel better? Or are you working out because you want to look better? Or are you working out because
you still want somebody to fuck you? Yeah.
You want someone to fuck you? Or is it because you're driven by these fucking whatever happened to you in your fucking childhood and like blah blah, right?
Sure.
And it could be a combination of all this shit. So it's like if you have Demi Moore as the specific like face of this, literally the face and body of this film, that doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to something larger than just some rich white woman who's fucking vain. You know what I mean? And
no, you're right. I know.
And I'm curious to see like if it does do that, or if it just basically is the Desperate Housewives of wherever you are, and this is what she's willing to do. She's willing to sell her fucking soul, so to speak, for this thing. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, that's pretty fucking extreme to go to these lengths. Why is she doing that? Well, is it about her or is it about the society that she lives in? You know what I mean? Like, and like, are we not all? I just came back from a fucking honeymoon, and we were talking about the seasons, and in places we're thinking about this as being from LA, right? So like, being from LA, we don't experience the seasons.
Not like regular people. Not like
fucking, we don't really experience the seasons.
No. It's either hot, or mildly
or it's just
warm.
Hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's different when you're in a place that experiences seasons, because I think the effect that it has on your psyche is you get to see the cycle of things, and you get to see the cycle of life. And I was just, we were talking about how, it's always fucking like it's the land of summer here in fucking LA. And I'm like, well, yeah, we don't get to see nature like get old, so to speak. And I wonder how much that has to, how much, if at all, and if it doesn't, it's still an interesting metaphor for me of how in this land of fucking like eternal summer, like people don't, and with Hollywood as being a part of it, like people don't want to fucking get old. And that doesn't mean everyone, obviously, but it just means like the assholes that we think of when we think of fucking the West Side, fucking Hollywood and all that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's, people don't want to fucking get old because why should they? Like the nature doesn't get old. The trees don't fucking like turn orange and fucking lose their leaves in the wintertime and all that shit in order to like bounce back the next time. It's just kind of like, just always what it is. There's always fucking grass here in the fucking desert because the water comes from somewhere. You know, I saw Chinatown or whatever.
It's Mr. Giddy's.
That's it. And so I'm curious, just from this little like trying to salvage Creepshow 2 conversation, that makes me want to watch this Demi Moore movie, The Substance, even more, because it's like, well, even if it doesn't hit those points, we know that like there was room for them to do it, and they just fucking chose. They were either unwilling or unable to do it. If it does hit the points, it's like, okay, which one of those points did they hit and how? And I just think it's interesting that like there's an opportunity to talk about that stuff. The question is like, how do they do it? And I want to see her give an interesting performance. I want to see her fucking put herself out there and what does she do? You know?
Well, that's the thing. Also, is that I understand that her experience is a unique one. I mean, I mean, she was probably the top female draw for a couple of years there back in the 90s. how many women can say that? I mean, Julia Roberts, I think Whoopi Goldberg at one point, Julia Roberts,
in a different way than fucking Julia Roberts, obviously.
In a different way than, yeah, obviously. But I'm talking about putting asses in the seats and the money that they could command for a performance. I mean, she got a lot of money to show her tits and striptease. I mean, and that was at a time when you could really do that. That's when, you remember when Halle Berry did it, where it was like, boom, she got I think she got $1 million extra to do Swordfish because she went topless in it. This is the mentality of Hollywood at a time where, you know, it just dictates the artistic and professional choices of actors and actresses specifically. So if it's, for me, if it's willing to be socially biting enough, if it really has a shitty attitude against Hollywood and the business itself, then I think I'm interested. And I think I might be able to invest in what this film is. You know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was a time when, you know, from Ghost, Indecent Proposal, Disclosure, G.I. Jane, where she was like relevant. I mean, and even like the 80s, St. Elmo's Fire and all that shit. But
what was that? Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said I am curious because I haven't really. She hasn't been on my radar. I don't know what the fuck she's done. Like,
well, the truth is that she's aged out of. She's probably 60 years old now, in an industry that is. I mean, who's the big name right now? Sydney Sweeney, is that it? Blonde girl, big tits. I don't
know who that is.
Blonde girl, big tits. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. And that statement alone goes a lot towards
I mean,
the point of this movie.
Yeah, I don't know who the fuck Sydney. I don't know what she's in. I don't know. Maybe I've seen her.
I think she's on Euphoria or some other HBO show. Big tits, blonde girl, cute. That's all. That's all you need to know. That's all it is. The days of you know, quality actors, they're fewer than they even once were. You know, there's not too many. There's not too many Kathy Bates out there. There's not too many.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is that, you know, somebody who transcends the look and is you know, you're watching because they're going to give a fucking brilliant performance. You know, the public might want to see a brilliant performance, but nobody wants to invest in somebody seeing that performance. Where's the return? So, I'll be willing to see the substance, and I'll go into it with as open a mind as I'm capable of. But the true test of how good it is, for me at least, is will it make me look past my own prejudices? And that's not fair, but it is what it is.
Given also the genre, the subgenre, it's like you can't get away from Cronenberg.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And so, I mean, I'm going into it thinking like, okay, well, you already have the chip stacked against you because it's kind of like, I expect you, if you're doing body horror and I'm thinking of Cronenberg, and that's fucked up on my part, but it's kind of just there. I expect you to gross me out, but I also expect you to make me think.
Yeah.
And I want ideas. And what we've talked about right now, that's just the obvious shit. Like, I also want something else. I want something more than just the obvious, which is this fucking, like, basically makeup on steroids.
Yeah. This
fountain of youth thing. Okay, what else does that mean? And we'll see. We'll fucking see. But the point is that every day is fucking Halloween. So
can be.
Dress appropriately, you know?
Yeah.
Buymeacoffee.com. We're still doing it. buymeacoffee.com/watchRickRamos. We have, as far as I know right now, we have 2 regular members.
Yeah.
We'll mention them and talk more and discuss some of what they want to see and some other stuff. You guys know who you are. We'll do some more of that later.
Well, you know who you are, and we're also very thankful for your continued support over many years, both of you.
Yeah, many, yes. And start thinking about stuff that you want to see. We're going to reach out to you about that. Or not that you want to see, but you want us to see and talk about.
Yeah.
And all that. But till next time, we're going to do what we do. You're going to do what you do. And that's what it is. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.